All right, everybody, welcome back to the showcast. Adam and I currently, at the time you were listening to us, are at DeSale University once again using their studio for an in-person interview this time around. We are joined by an award-winning illustrator, inker, whatever it is you want to call it. I'm sure we'll get further classification on it as we go through the interview. But for both Marvel and DC, which we are all fans of, and he's going to be doing a artist residency at Arts Quest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Scott Hanna. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I feel like we should applause because we're actually.
Well, we can now. We got the the
usually,
studio.
Usually it's over the phone. Applause doesn't quite.
Yeah, that
doesn't
quite
quite
the same thing.
Yeah. So this is going to be a little different as we've been talking to Scott while we were preparing for this. A little unorthodox as we have not really prepped for this interview, but we did it intentionally because we're going to kind of treat this more like a conversation than anything else. So tell us a little bit about, as I said, we'll get further classification on like the inker and illustrator and things like that. I know, have you ever seen the movie? Immediately I'm going right to a movie reference. Have you ever seen Chasing Amy?
No, never heard of that one with the inkers. Yeah,
with the inkers and the tracers.
Yes.
So, I mean, is there really a big? I mean, with an inker, are you pretty much what fills in the color? Explain it, because I'm curious myself.
Okay, normally the way I work in comics is it's a multi-stage process. It was actually developed kind of on the animation program of different people doing different parts so you can get a high quality product out in a short amount of time. One person could write, pencil, ink, color, letter a comic book, but it would usually take a long time to do that, so you couldn't put out a monthly product. And most of the comics I work on come out every month, sometimes every 2 weeks. And so what they did was they split up the different chores between different people, all working together. It's what I call collaborative art, just like a music group. A lot of people working together can produce higher quality stuff. So we normally start with a writer writing a script, and that writer may or may not have any artistic ability whatsoever. Usually not, but sometimes there are exceptions. And then it goes to a penciler. The penciler can do very rough drawings, which are called thumbnails or breakdowns, or they can do very, very tight finished drawings. I work either way with either chore. Then it goes to the inker or the finisher. When I'm a finisher, I'm working with very rough pencils, and it's called finisher because I finish the pencils and then I ink it. And when I'm just a straight inker, it may be very, very tight pencils, but I'm still going to be adding my touch of I'll add textures, shading. I'm very good with anatomy, so I might fix things that are wrong.
Mm-hmm. And this is all still by hand?
I'm very low tech because I started doing this way before we had computer technology that could do it. We now have computer programs that mimic what I do by hand very, very well. So a lot of the new generation is totally switching over to digital. And coloring has been digital for most of the past 15, almost 20 years. We've been doing digital coloring. And that made a gigantic leap in the quality of the product.
Right.
And then after I'm done with the pen and ink work, basically I do the black plate of the imagery. And then it goes to the colorist, and the colorist, in a sense, it's almost like a coloring book that they fill in those line drawings with color. But because they have the computer technology, they can take, say, if it's a Green Lantern energy beam, I'll do it as a black line, but the colorist can turn that black line into a green line and glow, and and they can add all these special effects that I can't even do, or that I could also do in the computer as well. Then there's also a letterer who adds those little captions and word balloons and stuff like that, which is also done digitally now. So in the early days when I started out, they hand lettered on the actual pages before the inking was done. And the inker had to be careful not to
go
over the top of the lettering. Yeah. So things have changed a lot in the past several years.
Yeah, in the present day with comic books now, because I collected comic books when I was younger. I kind of fell out of it for a while, and now I'm a regular at my comic book shop every Wednesday. I'm actually missing it being here today recording the interview, but every Wednesday I'm a regular at my comic book shop. We're a nice close-knit group. We always hang out till the store closes and the owner kicks us out, and so I'm back into it. There's a number of titles I get every week or every month. From start to finish, how many people would you say, you said it's a team effort, but how many people would you say it takes to create one issue of a comic book from right to finish?
Well, typically it's, like I said, there are 5 different parts. There's writer, penciler, inker, colorist, letterer, and they're all combined or held together by the editorial team. Usually there's a major editor, like a group editor and an assistant editor. But sometimes, like I'm working on a book called Convergence, which just came out today. Because that's a weekly series, that's a combination of, like, they have different teams every week, or they might have 4 different writers on the book. They might have 4 different pencilers on the single issue if it's more than 20 pages. So, I prefer it if it's just a standard 5 that are always working together every month, but other times they just throw a whole army of us together and just get us going.
Yeah, I mean, especially with probably like a title like Convergence, which is a big storyline in the DC universe right now.
Yes.
So it's, I haven't had a chance to read. I'm more of the kind of person where we will, if I know it's only going to be like a 5 or 6 part series, I'll get them every week. Well, no, I'll get the issues every week, but I'll wait until all those parts are out.
Okay.
Like
because I don't want to wait, and I binge read exactly.
It's been around.
Other than Convergence, what are some other current titles that you're working on that people might know?
Well, I just wrapped up Future's End, which was the big major crossover at DC right before Convergence started. I'm working on Batman Eternal for DC. Over at Marvel, I'm working on Avengers Versus and Ultimate End. Ultimate End is actually very similar to Convergence in a sense, but it's the Marvel version.
It's the Secret Wars.
Yeah, it's a tie-in to Secret Wars. Yeah. So for some reason, I'm working on a lot of these big crossover things at the moment. 'Cause actually things are kind of like in flux for me before I get another regular monthly title. But I'm still having a lot of fun because I'm getting to work on like all the big characters at both companies.
Yeah.
It's lots of amazing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Future's End. Is that the one that has the exhibit over at Arts Quest?
At Arts Quest, I've had an exhibit up for the past month and a half. Actually, I think I've got almost another month to go.
Yeah, I think June.
In June, and that's actually one entire issue of one of my Future's End issues. And it's actually where Superman finally gets brought back into action. Usually when I have exhibits, I have like kind of a smattering of the history of my stuff over the years because I've been doing this for a long time. And also it's hard to like pick and choose which is your favorite. So
right.
Okay. Do I want to put up like, Batman or Spider-Man or X-Men or, is it a movie tie-in or whatever? But in this case, I actually wanted to do kind of what an entire issue of a comic book looks like from page 1 all the way through page 20 in this case. So anybody, seeing the exhibit can go from one page to the next and literally kind of see the whole sequence of images.
Okay. And have the artist, I mean, we mentioned the artist residency. Did you just sign on for that recently?
Actually, no, that's just wrapping up, actually.
Okay.
So unfortunately, this is happening kind of after the fact because I just did, a slideshow lecture at Arts Quest. And then
was some kind of sketch off or something like that.
Last weekend we had they called it a sketchathon, but
sketchathon.
Really, it was just an excuse for a whole bunch of artists to get together, draw from live models. I was drawing as well, but I was also kind of like teaching. It was kind of an informal class for the people who needed a class, and then there were a lot of other professional artists who just do their thing.
Yeah, it would have been cool to push people to that because that sounds really cool. Because I saw that, I was like,
yeah.
That
we also had like one of the things. One of my favorite topics is I love anatomy. I teach anatomy in my school, and so we actually had a model in an anatomy muscle suit. Which was really, it just looked really neat that, people could see what the muscles looked like the skin was gone, basically. And actually the freakiest part was that the eyes never closed because it had like a full face mask. It looked like it was a mannequin, but it was really a person in this outfit. But the people drawing had a blast because a lot of times it's really hard to understand what the muscles are.
Right.
And here you're seeing it right out there. So I was helping,
that's pretty cool.
Teach at the same time as just having fun drawing.
Yeah. And then, before we go off on too many tangents. So if they want to see, your exhibit, most of the information's on artsquest.org.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then, your classes you had mentioned too. Is that artsandfashioninstitute.com?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Arts and Fashion
And then
Institute.
did you have any coming up that people can sign
Yeah,
up for?
I'm actually just about to start a couple of new sessions of classes. I've got normally I teach on Saturdays and Tuesdays. Tuesdays are like my 6-week and 12-week classes. Saturdays are more aimed at younger kids and are like 4-week classes. But I've got classes in comics and manga art for kids and adults. I've got classes in inking for comics, and one of my favorite classes is sequential art, tying into the Future's End exhibit, where I teach how to tell a story with pictures. And that ties in even to movies, like you were talking about before. Mm-hmm. Movies are sequential art, video games are sequential art, animation is, and comic books are. So I use reference of all those different media when I teach that class.
You said, I mean, sticking with the art, and you just mentioned video games as being part of a sequential art. There's been a lot of Marvel games, there's been a lot of DC games and things like that. Have you ever done any of the illustrations or any of the artwork for the game that inspire any of the games?
I've done some of the character design artwork for some of the games, mostly, actually, I think only for some of the Marvel games.
Okay.
Like the Ultimate version of games. I forget which ones exactly, but yeah, normally they kind of peg me to help do the character designs and the costumes and things like that. Mm-hmm. But most of the time I'm pretty much full-time comic books.
Okay.
And I like it that way because I have like total freedom.
Yeah. And you've been doing it obviously for a very long time. One of the things I'm curious, I know this is probably, I talked to Adam about this question and I'm sure it's probably a ridiculously easy question to answer, but have you ever met Stan Lee?
Yes, I've worked with him several times on several different projects. One of my favorites was the last Fantastic Four story that Stan Lee wrote, John Romita Jr. drew, and I inked. And I've talked to him on the phone several times when I was working on these projects, but the only times I've actually met him were kind of like quickly at a convention to say, hi, how you doing? You know, I got to work with you. And I think to him, you know, outside of the phone conversations when we're actually working together, it's just a very casual, wow, I got to work with Stan Lee. You know?
Well, I mean, because when you think of Marvel, that's probably one of the main people that you think of.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's incorporated in everything from, you know, the origin of Marvel all the way up into the Marvel movies that are out right now. And it makes me wonder, is there anybody of that caliber on the other half of it for DC? Is there anybody that you would kind of equate to that, to like a Stan Lee level with DC?
Well, there are actually a lot of artists and writers that I grew up reading their stuff that I've gotten to work with over the years. A lot of them at both companies. I mean, I got to work with like Chris Claremont and John Byrne at the Marvel side. I got to work with artists like Jim Aparo. Mike Grell was actually a really strong influence in my early childhood. Kurt Swan was another fantastic art. I think he did the cover of the very first superhero comic book I ever got, and I got to work with him. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those dream things of like meshing the fanboy that's always inside you with your professional career and having it all tie together. Mm-hmm. So I've been very fortunate that way.
Yeah. You mentioned meeting Stan at a con, you know, or anytime you run into him or cons like that. Do you do the cons often?
I'm starting to do cons a little bit more, and they're actually popping up all over the place now. It seems like there are way more than there used to be. Yeah. For a very long period, I'm such a workaholic, I don't have time to do many cons. But it's a good way to promote yourself and really meet the fans. And the other thing, like there have been creators I've worked with for like decades and never met them in person. Then I finally go to a convention and it's like, oh, that's who you are. You know, it's really weird that you literally work with these people for years, but you never see them. You never really even talk to them now with the internet. So, convention for me is a get together with the other professionals as well as the fans.
Mm. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because Comic-Cons are so different from other conventions. Like other conventions, that's normal. You always go to meet your peers and stuff like that. But now with Comic-Cons, they're a completely different monster.
Well, they're also getting, I like Comic-Cons in all the different levels. Like I love the really small ones because then I can actually really get to talk to the fans.
Right.
I love the gigantic ones because they're just insane.
It's overwhelming.
Like I'm going to be doing a New York special edition in a couple of weeks, and that's the smaller version of the big one in October. But that is just gigantic, you know, and it's there's so much energy, there's so much enthusiasm, and I think with today's technological world of everybody, in internet chat rooms and stuff, conventions are that excuse to actually all get together in person, have a real society. You were talking about, going to comic book stores as your weekly get together. The convention is just that on a worldwide scale kind of thing. And it's so cool. It's our world, the geeks rule.
And I mean, didn't you do Allentown last year?
Yeah, I've done Allentown a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're doing that again this year? Because I know they branched off and did one down in
Oaks.
The
Philadelphia.
They did a bigger one. Ben actually got to go to that one. I was at Allentown last year. Are they doing that again this year?
They're still doing, I think, Allentown a couple of times a year.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's, like I said, it seems like every time I turn around, there's a new convention. I'm even doing a lot of small library conventions in New Jersey and Pennsylvania area, because the libraries really love the fact that comic books and graphic novels teach kids how to read.
Yeah.
And they keep them coming back. It's exciting for them to read as opposed to this boring thing you have to do.
Yeah, right.
It's actually something, because of the movies and the toys and everything else, it's really exciting. It's fun. So they're encouraging that in the school system and the library system. And now libraries are starting to do these little mini cons, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah. When you go to the cons and stuff, now that you're just starting to do them, like when you do Allentown and things like that, and you set up a booth at the cons, and do you do illustrations while you're sitting at your booth for fans that come around, or do you just do them for people to see? And
well, normally the way I always did conventions for years was the only way I actually made money at conventions was people would come up to me and say, draw Batman. And I would get paid to draw whatever character they asked me to draw. And I still do that. That's my main thing, is I just do whatever drawings people want. Because we have the internet now, a lot of times people actually get pre-commission lists for me so they can pick it up at a convention. So I might do a bunch of drawings ahead of time. I've had times where I've got a really tight deadline with a project. I'm actually inking pages of an actual comic book at the show. But that's not really recommended because there's so much jostling and distractions going on. I try not to do that whenever possible. But nowadays, I'll also sell prints of my artwork, or actually even the actual comic books that I work on.
Okay.
So people can come to me, and I'm not quite like a store representative thing, but I have a small rack of some of my current projects or even my older projects, so people can see, what I'm working on and recognize the fact, oh yeah, it's that guy that. There's so many conventions that people get mixed up who's who. And it's nice for people to know who are the real professionals as opposed to who are the amateur wannabe artists who still are selling prints of Batman and Superman, even though they've never professionally worked on those characters.
Right.
And there are a lot of those type of people. So the professionals have to kind of, have to make a statement, I guess.
Have you ever had anybody, because you mentioned everybody comes up to you and asks you to draw something. Have you ever had anybody either come up to you and show you a tattoo of one of your drawings, or ask you to do a drawing for them to get a tattoo of?
Several times I've specifically been asked to do a tattoo design, which is very intimidating. Yeah. Because this is going to be permanently on their body, so you don't want to screw it up and do your, do your mistaken drawing. But only a few times I've actually gotten to see the end results, so I've seen.
Were you happy with how it turned out?
Oh yeah.
Were they happy with how it turned out?
Yeah, well, one of the first ones I think was at San Diego. Somebody said, I want you to do this Wolverine drawing where he's standing in profile with his claws popped and it's going to go on my whole side over here. And I'm like, okay, wow, that sounds really cool. So I did the drawing, and then I was back again the next year. And he showed me the tattoo, and then he said, now on this other side, I want a werewolf. And then, so that's actually, it's just, you can't get more flattering than that to have somebody's, permanently inscribed.
Yeah, because I have one tattoo, and it's of my family crest, and I'm okay with getting another one, but I'm so weary of what I get. Yeah. I don't want to get something that I'm going to regret. So that made me think, I'm like, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Getting a tattoo of a professional, someone who's done Marvel and DC and stuff like that. So I'm sure, I figured somebody had to have asked you at some point in the past.
Yes, it's a fun. Actually, I know some professional inkers in comics that their side job is tattooing, because it's very similar to what inkers do.
Did you ever think about trying it?
I'm kind of queasy with blood, so I don't think I'd make a very good
Not for you
tattoo.
then. Yeah.
I know you had mentioned New York Comic Con too, and I went to New York last year, and New York is its own separate monster right now. I mean,
I think it's going to be bigger than San Diego this year.
I think that's what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
and I mean, and I don't knock a lot of conventions. We're fans of Wizard World conventions because they have theirs down in Philly, and I mean, from night and day from last year, they've stepped up their game, and it's been huge. And the only complaint I had with New York last year was New York was just too many people. It's just it's a massive people.
But bigger space than Javits Center.
And I think it's outgrowing Javits Center actually because it's becoming so popular. But one of the things I noticed, from previous cons from Wizard World and New York Comic Con, and especially at New York Comic Con, is a lot of people that go to these conventions don't realize that Artist Alley exists. They go for the celebrities, they go for the shopping booths and things like that. I happen to go to New York with two good friends of mine, and a friend of mine, one of them is big into the comic book art and things like that. And he's the one that took me down the hallway at New York to Artist Alley. And
it's a whole separate section.
It's a whole
that's
separate
totally
section.
disconnected, yeah.
And it's huge.
It's gigantic.
And when you walk around that section and you look at some of the artwork, a lot of this artwork is still fresh. Like, it hasn't really picked up, gained the speed that it's going to get. And the example I use is that my friend that I was with, actually met the artist that did the artwork for Spider-Gwen.
Oh, yeah.
And this was before issue number 1 of Spider-Gwen had come out. It was right after the Edge of Spider-Verse issue, debuting her. So he got the artist to draw the cover, autographed it. It's now framed in his apartment. And that now is huge to him because of how popular that has become since he got that artwork.
Well, that's one of the great things about especially large shows like New York, that you have a lot of the veteran artists like I am, but you have a lot of these beginners who are just breaking in, and you never know exactly who's going to become a superstar, but there are going to be new superstars that keep, coming up, and there's some phenomenal talent that's out there. And a lot of the guys who are doing independent books may end up, getting a breakout hit. A lot of guys doing independents may cross over to Marvel or DC or some of the bigger companies. You never know what's going to happen. And yeah, just wandering through there. Like as a kid, I used to go to shows, but they were never near the scale of New York. But to me, it was better than going to a museum because you're seeing the artwork and you're getting to meet the actual people who do that artwork.
Right.
And they're doing it right in front of you. It's like magic that you can actually see them creating this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just really, that's one of the things I love about it. And the special edition New York show that I'm doing in 2 weeks, that's kind of like Artist Alley without the rest of the convention.
Okay.
Okay. So that's why I like the special edition, because it's so much about the comic book art specifically.
Are there people that go to that a little more interactive too?
Well, I think this is only the second year that they've done it.
Oh, okay.
And they actually changed the location. It was at Javits last year, and this time it's at Pier 94 or something like that.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the new location yet. But if it's anything like what last summer's event was, it's going to be a spectacular show. And again, I love it because a lot of the people who just go for the art, for the artists, they know to go to the show, and that they know it's its own convention, basically.
Yeah. Is it still, and I can lead this into another question too, but is it still the kind of convention where a lot of people cosplay and dress up?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
things like that? How does it, I mean, obviously as the inker and the illustrator, you're not the creator of the character. I mean, in essence, you're creating the character itself, but you're not the initial, creator of the character from years past. But have you ever done a version of a character in a comic book that you've seen somebody cosplay?
Oh, yeah, many times. I mean, I've been in on again, the inker is not usually listed as creator, but I've drawn first versions of many characters. Like, I was at the beginning of the Nightfall storyline where Bane was introduced.
Okay.
So I've seen, Bane both the comic book version as opposed to the movie version. The Scarlet Spider was one of the things I worked on when it was first introduced, the first version of that character. There have been dozens of others, but yeah, it's always fun just to see, it come to life. I mean, I really enjoy cosplayers. Again, when I go to someplace like New York City or Baltimore and I see the streets just like You know, it's like this is a comic book come to life because superheroes are walking the streets of Manhattan. It is so cool. To me, it's just a blast to see that.
And people don't look twice. That's the best part.
Well, some people do definitely look twice.
Most people don't.
but a lot of people, this is just normal. And literally, to me, it's like my comic book has materialized into total it's better than a movie. It's the real physical thing. So wild.
It's so cool to see some of the costumes that people.
Oh yeah, and they get so elaborate.
Do you ever watch that show? What was it?
Heroes of Cosplay.
Cosplay.
Yeah, actually, my wife teaches cosplay. She's a fashion designer in her school.
I saw she did Project Runway.
Yeah,
right?
she was on Project Runway, but several of her students are actually major cosplayers.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Because cosplayers usually to win the awards at the competitions, you can't just buy a costume and wear it. You have to physically make your own stuff. And so a lot of people are going to real seamstresses, to real, fashion design schools to really learn how to make this. And they have to not just even make the outfit, but they have to make the armor. They have to make the boots. They have to make every piece of these things they're creating from scratch. It's just amazing.
I learned that the hard way last year for Wizard World. I cosplayed for the very first time, had never done it before, but I wanted to attempt it. I wanted to live that for once. I'm so glad I did it because it was so much fun. Not just the attention that I got, but I mean, kids coming up to me, and I cosplayed as Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
the original,
the original from the cartoon,
purple
from
one.
And but just like kids coming up to you and asking to take pictures and getting the pose, like it was so much fun. It was such a blast.
Well, it's another way that the fans get to become real life superheroes, not just dress that way. It's their secret identity. You get to be put another persona. A lot of the fans are very shy, quiet people, but you put on this costume and you're another person, and it's great. And to get that kind of feedback from the attendees and stuff, to have your picture taken, it's a thrill. You get to that feeling of what a rock concert musician feels like when they're on stage, or
I was gonna say it's like how the characters at Disney World feel every day.
Yeah, exactly. But to have any average person with a little bit of time and skill can actually get into that place, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I went wearing a Shield T-shirt and a Yoda backpack.
So. That's not quite this.
Nobody asked for my picture.
Before we change topics and go into like movies and television and things like that, are there any comic books other than Marvel and DC that you've worked on, or are there any that you would like to that you know of?
Well, one of my favorite characters that I haven't had a chance to work on yet is Hellboy. Mike Mignola's Hellboy. I've actually known Mike very lightly I actually think I first met him and saw his artwork before he officially broke into comics and stuff. And he's in a weird way, he's responsible for me getting work at DC Comics. But that's another long story. But anyway, so yeah, I'd love to work on something like that for Dark Horse. But and right now, actually, I just did a bunch of covers for Valiant Comics.
Okay.
With the same penciler I was working with on Future's End at DC, actually, Scott Hanna. But I'm a free agent, so I can work for anybody. And a lot of times the smaller companies actually give me more of an opportunity to do things like the penciling. So I've actually got a graphic novel cover that I penciled, inked, and colored that's being published by Dover Graphic Novels. That one's called Blackjack. And I think that's coming out in June. And so occasionally when I get a free moment from Marvel and DC, I'll work for other companies just to, have fun.
Yeah, I'm sure they keep you pretty busy.
They like to keep me busy. Yes. And I love working for both companies. Yeah. So it's like, oh, what a shame. I'm only working on Spider-Man and Batman right now. Oh, that's so horrible. Yeah.
I was going to say, outside of the inker world and the actual physically people working on the comic books, you would think, someone who does Marvel and DC stuff, that's like someone working for Coke and Pepsi.
It is.
But
it is in a lot of ways.
Is it more common, though, in the inker world?
The fans don't really understand how the professionals act.
Right.
Because in the professional world, there's so much crossover between the two companies. They're almost like the same company. An example of that is I actually started working for DC when I was first getting started, had an exclusive with them for a couple of years. And then my very first editor at Marvel was, I got to work on Wolverine, and the editor was Bob Harris, who later became the editor-in-chief at Marvel. He is now currently the editor-in-chief at DC.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's so much crossover between the two. And so a lot of even his staff that used to be over at Marvel 20 years ago is now at DC, and I'm still working for him, so and that happens all the time. Like if I wrap up a project at DC and they don't immediately have something ready for me and Marvel does, I kind of just take whatever comes in first. And I kind of like both sides. There are different characters. It would be weird for me to say, I always want to work on Batman, but I never got a chance because I've been exclusive to Marvel. Right. I've had the luxury of I can work for either company, so I can kind of pick and choose whichever ones I want.
Mm-hmm. It's surprising to me too, with so much crossover of artists and editors and things like that it's been so long, and maybe it's more the financials of the companies and the companies trying to make money on their own. But I'm surprised it's been so long since there's been a DC Marvel crossover. Yes,
I actually, one of the things I'm really proud of is I got to work on the first Spider-Man Batman crossover, and it did happen twice. There was a Spider-Man Batman and a Batman Spider-Man, and at the time I was working on Spider-Man for one company and Batman for the other company. But I think it's almost like, especially now that Marvel's been bought by Disney, and Disney and Warner Brothers, which owns DC, are very much rival companies. Right. It's not quite as kind of familial as it used to be in the old days. It's a little bit more corporate than it used to be. Mm-hmm. So I very much doubt we're going to have very many crossovers anytime soon. But you never know.
Maybe Disney will buy DC.
If there's enough demand from the fans, it might happen.
Yeah, with the Civil War, they have Spider-Man supposedly coming over to the movie aspect of it.
Yes, well, that's still within Marvel, but that's
if two major film companies can come to an end, maybe there's hope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, what was it? Years ago, Who Framed Roger Rabbit had some Disney characters and Warner Brothers characters and that's basically the same two companies. Right. So it can happen. So, like I said, if enough people demand it or request it, it may happen again. You never know. I actually, personally, as a fan, I love that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times, there's been crossovers before of like Hulk and Superman and you see a lot of people do their own fan artwork and stuff like that and kind of create it. I think it would be cool one day if there's enough fan outcry that could actually happen, that the artist could work on that and make that happen again. So, but going into the movies, as Adam had mentioned Civil War and everything like that, what are your opinions on the film adaptations of a lot of these comic books that you've worked on?
Well, I keep getting more and more impressed as time goes on with the quality level. It seems to me like a lot of the superhero movies keep getting better.
Yeah.
You think, we're going to get a glut and it's going to be horrible and they're just like batting this stuff out. It's like, no, they're like, especially, to me, the Marvel universe of films, that they're treating it a lot like the source material, that in comic books, we can tell these incredibly long stories that happen over the span of months and years. And it all builds on prior things that happened years before. Right. And they're starting to treat the movies that way, that, and it's cool too, because I've worked on all this stuff that they're adapting it, that they're basing this stuff on, but they change it in ways that make it modern and different. So I can still be fooled by a movie plot and not know what's going on, even if it's based on the story I originally did. But to me, the writing is usually spectacular nowadays. It used to be you'd go to a superhero movie. It's like, okay, it's for little kids. The parents would kind of just suffer through it and the kids would be having a blast. Nowadays, the adults enjoy just as much as the kids do. The writing is things like you mentioned Civil War, for instance. Mm-hmm. Civil War was a comic book version dealing with some very adult subjects because we were dealing with the politics in America of how the different political parties were at loggerheads and infighting and all this stuff. And we started translating that into superheroes and comic books. And so there's some elements of that which work great on just a straight kid level, but there are other elements of that that work very, very well for advanced adults levels. And I just know that when they're doing that in the movies, they're going to treat that the same way. Mm-hmm. They're going to have sophisticated writing. They're going to have great subplots. They're going to have character development. And when in the early days of superhero movies, I would go in thinking it's like, okay, I know they're going to have 20 gigantic plot holes that don't make any sense, but I'll still enjoy the special effects and the costume characters. Now I go in, it's like, wow, that's a great story. Man, how did they combine all these different elements and still make it work and still want me coming back the next time for what I don't know is going to happen next, you know? So I'm just astonished that they keep doing this so well and they keep raising the bar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it used to be that the bar was kind of low. Now the bar is set
and the
really,
bar would
really
get
high.
Lowered after every iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah, every second or third movie you expect it to go down in quality. Now you expect every second and third movie to keep getting better somehow.
Yeah, I feel like every Marvel movie that comes out, I'm like, oh, that might be my favorite Marvel movie.
That when the Avengers came out, I was like, how can they top this?
Right.
Then Winter Soldier came out. I was like,
and that's how they did it. It was just,
and then Guardians came out, and
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, how did they do this? It's just astonishing.
We when we talk about the movies on the podcast, we'll give them like a rating, like
Right.
1 to 10. And for when Avengers 2 came out, we talked about it. I was like, all right, I want to give it a 10, but that means nothing can top it. So I can't give it a 10 because I don't know what else they're going to come out with.
Right.
So I gave it like a 9.5 or something.
I gave it a 10. I didn't care. I gave it a 10. Then I think I gave Guardians a 10 too when that came out. So
Guardians was so good.
Guardians
knowing
just blew me away.
Very little about Guardians. I mean, unlike Ben, I wasn't as much of a comic book reader, but I paid attention to it. I always watched, when I was younger, I watched all the cartoon shows and stuff.
Well, it cracked me up when the Guardians came out because I drew all those characters in the comic books way before it got turned into a movie. So several years ago, if I mentioned Groot to anybody, I'd just get this total mystified like, what the heck are Rocket Raccoon? Nobody in the world knew what I was talking about.
My new favorite Marvel character.
Even though I had drawn these characters for years. And now I mention it and everyone's like, I love Groot, I love Rocket, It's like, that's another thing that just cracks me up that, it becomes this popular culture thing when it started out as just these little drawings on a page.
Have you noticed like a kind of ebb and flow with the comic industry when the movies start coming out and stuff like that? Has it really like exploded the comic book world? People trying to get into it now with the movies?
I don't really pay attention to a lot of that, the kind of business end of it or whatnot. I know that comics are very much of an international effect now, that the creators come from all over the world.
Right.
And so when you see a movie like The Avengers grossing, billions of dollars all over the planet, that means everybody all over the planet now wants to draw Iron Man or wants to draw, so now you have these very talented people coming from everywhere wanting to do Marvel characters or DC characters. So there's a lot of competition, but in a very good way. It's very talented people. And now I think the comic book companies love it because, like, wow, we get our pick and choose of, not just the best people from New York City, but the best people from everywhere.
Yeah.
And it actually, animation is very similar to that. Like, if you look at, DreamWorks or Pixar, they get animators from all over the world. They get the best of the best coming in and that's how you produce the highest quality you can get. You get a gigantic talent pool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that has happened very much. Like, you go to most comic book conventions and the Artist Alley is international.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are people from everywhere that are in that room all working on the same, for the same company.
Yeah. Does that ever make you feel pressured knowing that there's a higher calling for?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can. Yeah, I guess that was kind of a stupid
seniority though.
Well, yeah, but I've been doing this for a long time and I have a very, very good reputation and stuff, but art's always a very competitive field. So we're always trying to up our game. And in reality, my job is only as good as what I'm doing right now. If I injured my hand, I'm out of work. They're not going to say, oh, Scott's been doing this for 30 years. Let's pity him and give him some work anyway. It's like, no, if he can't draw well, he's not getting the job.
Yeah.
So, but on the other end, art is also one of those things that you keep getting better over time.
Mm.
So I have that 30 years of experience, which gives me a real edge over all these beginning people who may have amazing talent, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the, all the little tricks you learn over the decades and stuff like that. So yeah, I've got an edge over a lot of other people. So I'm not really worried or anything, but at the same time, I'm always trying to up my game. I'm always trying to do better with my next project.
Is there some like young phenom who's like ambidextrous so he can draw with both hands in case one goes down?
Well, one of the weirdest things for me is, I don't know why, but supposedly I'm one of the fastest inkers in the industry. And I have been for pretty much my entire career. Like, supposedly I've inked more pages of comic books than anybody else alive.
Wow.
Right now, because I'm so much faster than most other people. And even with now being able to do stuff digitally, I'm still faster than almost anybody else out there. So I don't know why I have that edge, but I have it. And so far I've kept it. So I haven't had, well, I mean, and the dangerous thing though is speed isn't great if you lower your quality with your speed. Yeah. So my trick has always been to stay as high quality as humanly possible, but still do it quickly. And I'm one of the very few people that's managed to combine those two elements.
You have to do like steady hand exercises or something. Like, how do you?
Well, I mean, a typical day of at the drawing board might be 12 hours of drawing for me. And I might if I've got deadlines, I might be drawing 7 days a week. And during my free time, I teach.
So you're drawing a lot.
So I draw a lot, and I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Imagine drawing 12 hours a day for 30 years. You get pretty used to what you're doing. Yeah. You get really adept with your tools and your techniques and all that stuff.
I still have a hard time coloring inside the lines. So.
Well, I can't, I'm only good at one thing, and that's art. Well, teaching too, but yeah, if you try to get me to do, like, I love music, but I can't do music at all. I'm like, I can't play any instruments. I can't sing. You never want to hear me sing. So yeah, everybody's good at something, right? But, you can't be good at everything.
I know, as I said, I've been getting back into comics. I've been going to the comic book store, like I said, every Wednesday for almost like 2 years now. I'm just getting back into it. And one of the things I'm now starting to get into that I know people who've been collecting for years get into are the variant covers. Have you ever had like any of the honors of doing any of those extreme variants for some of those comic books?
Well, yeah, actually right now for Secret Wars, for instance, I'm working with Mark Bagley on Ultimate End, and they just asked us to do a Secret Wars alternate cover. And it was so cool because we did like 3 different versions of Spider-Man. We did Spider-Man 2099, Ultimate Spider-Man, and regular Spider-Man all on the same cover at the same time. Uh-huh. And it's just so fun to get to work on things like that on rare occasions. But yeah, normally I'm actually not the like first guy they go to for covers. I'm more like, because I'm so reliable and fast and good, they want me on that, like, okay, he can do 20 pages in the deadline we have, so have him do the 20 pages. Frequently they give the covers actually to the slower guys because they have a little bit more. Yeah, it's just one image. So you have a month to do a cover.
Here you go.
You can manage this. Yeah.
Here's one picture for you, Scott. Here's 20 pages.
Because they do have the variants, that gives me more opportunities to do an occasional cover, which I really like.
Yeah, because I know one of the artists that I'm more familiar with for the variants, and I like to collect this person's variant. It's the Scotty Young variants.
Yeah. Oh, he's phenomenal.
Which are like for anybody that's listened doesn't know, they're like the kid versions of all the characters. They're like the Muppet Babies of the Marvel characters when you do it. So
do they look like the pop vinyl things?
Yeah, a little bit. They look a little bit like the pop vinyls.
I saw a T-shirt at Mayfair with somebody.
Yeah, they're just hilarious though. I love seeing his version of his take on the character.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get like the Spider-Gwen #1 Scotty Young variant and things like that. Going back to the movies and television and switching to television right now, there's a lot of great television adaptations of some of these shows. We had mentioned Daredevil a little bit earlier. I think we hadn't started the recording yet, but we had mentioned it. And there's other shows like Arrow and Flash and things like that.
Now Supergirl.
Yeah, there's Supergirl, there's S.H.I.E.L.D., there's Peggy Carter, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think Marvel's working on a couple others. I even like
AKA
Constantine.
Yeah.
There's
AKA Jessica Jones is going to be
Gotham
doing
is
that.
another one.
Mhm.
But to me, I could have only, in my wildest imagination, dream of a time where we could have 5 comic book based TV shows on air at the exact same time. I mean that,
and all doing well.
yeah, exactly. They're all well done. They're all doing well,
Yeah.
and I couldn't even, like I said, in my wildest imagination, I would never dream that would be possible.
Right.
But that shows how popular this kind of storytelling really is right now. It's what people want to see. And I think so much of it is because the creators, the creators have always, most of the time, the creators have always treated these characters with respect. But now the TV makers, the producers, the companies have started realizing that, wait, if you treat these characters with respect, with intelligence, with, smart writing, good visuals, good character design, technology has helped a lot too, because we can now show superpowers to a much greater degree, believably. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember like the first live action Spider-Man show.
I've seen,
or
the original
even
Superman with
George Reeves.
George Reeves, yeah. I knew it was Reeves. I couldn't remember
even
his first
that
name.
was actually a spectacular show for kids, but adults wouldn't watch that with any level of sincerity because it wasn't written for them. Now the modern material is written for kids and for adults, and it works because they're treating it with the same respect as any other drama on TV. So that level, like I said, the creators have always tended to look at it that way, but it's nice to see the producers, the TV people, the movie people treating it with the exact same respect that we've as creators always had for these characters.
Yeah.
Because, we grew up loving them, but we want them also to work for our age.
Right. As busy as you are, do you have time to watch any of those fantastic shows?
Unfortunately, not as much as I would like, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm kind of, I kind of like binge on them at the end of a season. I might try to watch a whole bunch of them in a row because I generally don't. They're almost too distracting while I'm working because I'm such a workaholic that it's like, oh, that's so cool. I'll stop drawing for an hour to watch the show.
An hour turns into 2.
Right, exactly.
Netflix
So I kind of have to, hold off for a little bit and wait till the end of the season and then catch up or something.
Yeah. I know outside of, I think with the Marvel movies and the DC movies and the television shows and things like that, I think it's made it more, I guess I'm trying to think of the words to put, but it's made it more readily possible for people to come out as fans of that kind of thing, because I remember when I was younger, it's made it more mainstream. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's totally mainstream.
Because I remember when I was younger in middle school and high school, you tried not to tell people you were into stuff like that.
It's not just mainstream; it's actually popular to be a geek. You look at a TV show like The Big Bang Theory, and these guys are the geekiest guys in the universe, and it's one of the most popular shows on TV, and they go to a comic book store almost every other episode. But yeah, when I was a kid, you hid the fact that you read comics. You weren't quite ashamed, really, but you could get picked on.
Wasn't information you'd volunteer necessarily.
Absolutely. But now, in reality, they've said this at like conventions like San Diego and New York Comic Con, that the geeks rule the world now.
Yeah.
We really do. So a lot more people have that freedom to say, allow their inner geek out, because most of us have that secret identity we want to let out. We want to, the reason I think superheroes especially work is because most of us want to be something beyond what we are. We want to be our ideal selves. We want to be, even people sometimes like the villains because they want that inner anger out or that inner good, or, in the modern world, we can feel very powerless, and giving us a chance, that geek element gives us our power back. We can be that superhero. We can be that powerful self and let it out there and share it with the world and not get picked on about it. People, cosplayers get smiled at. They want photographs taken with them. Reading a comic book is cool now. It's like, so all this stuff, to me, it's a wonderful world that we managed to especially in my professional career, I've seen this gigantic change of acceptance through, like, again, it's mainstream now.
Right.
It used to be like when I was a kid, nobody who didn't read a comic book knew who the X-Men were. Nobody knew who Iron Man was. They may have heard of Superman and Batman and Spider-Man, but they didn't know who Wolverine was. All these characters have become such an element of popular culture. And again, they're worldwide phenomena. So I can go anywhere on the planet, tell them I draw superheroes, and I'm totally accepted right away.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of like listeners can't see it obviously, but the shirt I wear right now is a shirt 20 years ago I would have never walked out of the house wearing, but I mean, it's a Reverse Flash t-shirt that people would have never known it was Reverse Flash because they never read the comic books. But now I walk around in the shirt and people know exactly who the logo is for, and I get complimented like people love the shirt and things like that. So yeah, it's just become so much more popular that people who picked on the nerds and the geeks when they were younger are now nerds and geeks themselves because they're fans of all this stuff now too.
Well, I get people all the time who may have never read a comic book in their lives, but they still know something about these characters because of the video games, because of the movies, the TV shows, just the t-shirts, I mean, you can't walk around without seeing this stuff everywhere. And, to me, that's great. And one of the things I love about comic books is, it's fun. I love doing it, but I get to entertain other people with what I love to do. And a lot of it, I get to educate people because, like I said, we treat this as a very smart subject with intelligent, these things are really well. I worked with some of the best writers in the world on comic books. And because you have to be good, you have to tell good stories. You have to put amazing plot twists and interest. You got to get people hooked. You got to make people care about the characters. That's all smart stuff. That's good stuff to know, So I love the fact that that's now accessible to everybody.
Yeah. There's been a number of celebrities that have come out, obviously, of fans of things like that. And there's been a ton of them who have become guest writers and things like that. I think CM Punk from WWE, well, no longer with WWE, did, I think the Thor annual that came out a couple months ago. And I think comedian Brian Posehn has written for it before. Have you ever gotten the chance to work with any of the celebrity writers?
I worked with, on Spider-Man, I worked with, Straczynski, who co-created Babylon 5, I think it was. Okay. So he's probably one of the biggest guys, other than Stan Lee, of course. But I've actually worked with some major novelists who crossed over and done some occasional comic books. And a lot of guys like Neil Gaiman started out doing comic books, then he went on to doing novels and movies. Mm-hmm. But when I worked with him, he was just still known as just a comic book guy. But yeah, the crossover is just amazing, and I've worked with many, many different people in all different aspects.
Other than obviously the Marvel and the DC, are there any other franchises that you're fans of? I mean, like Star Wars or Game of Thrones or Doctor Who or.
I love Doctor Who, especially the new iterations. I kind of got rehooked on, I watched it a little bit when I was a kid. I mostly knew I forget the doctor with the long scarf.
Tom Baker?
Tom Baker,
yeah.
So that was Doctor Who for me when I was a little kid, but it's still, you watch those old episodes again, those were aimed at kids. But now they do, again, amazing stuff. That very similar to what we do with superheroes, that they brought it up to a totally new level, a multifaceted level where it's great for kids, it's great for adults. So I love Doctor Who. I've always been a fan of Star Trek, most of the various incarnations of that. Got to work on those in the comic books as well. And one of the things I haven't really worked on is the Star Wars universe. But I think, now Marvel is now putting out some Star Wars stuff, so I'm hoping I might get a chance to work on that.
Mutual.
They're in my weekly pull at the comic book store.
So that's something I hope I'll get to add to my project in the near future because I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just a kid. I think I'll be like a 12 to 15-year-old for my entire life.
to still enjoy doing this. I mean, you kind of have to be. how long, 20 to 30 years. If you don't have that like mentality of this is fun, you're just going to get burnt out.
That well, one of the things I kind of promised myself when I first got started in comics was I said I'm going to do comics as long as I have fun with it. When it stops being fun, I'll go do other forms of art. And I've done other things in my career, but it's getting close to 30 years, and I literally still have fun. So, and who can say that? For 30 years doing your job, you can be enjoying yourself and having a blast.
Yeah.
And being, like I said, a little kid at heart your entire life. So hopefully when I'm 70 or 80, I can still say that stuff.
And there's still...
I know Stan Lee is like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you meet him, he's still like even... I think when he started what we think of as the Marvel Universe and created like the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, he was already like in his 40s or something, like around 40.
Yeah, he's in his 80s now?
Yeah, he's something like... But the fact... I just saw him last year, and he still is the most cheerful, upbeat guy you can imagine. You can tell he's still a little kid inside, no matter what his physical age is. I love that.
Yeah. And it's not like there's not still plenty of opportunities. I mean, even if you continue with the work, there's still plenty of other artists that you can work with, plenty of other writers that you can work with, plenty of other possible future franchise characters that haven't even been developed yet that you'll get to work on. So there's still... it's still a complete open book for you and the rest of your future when it comes to that.
Yeah, and it's always changing and adapting and stuff. So, yeah, what I do now is not the same stuff I was doing 20 years ago. It's always growing and adapting and changing, and that's what's so cool about it. That it can be. We mentioned Secret Wars briefly. Like I was around when the first Secret Wars was coming out. I was around, But the new version is totally different. It's got the same name, but it's a totally different monster. So it is brand new every time I work on something like that.
Yeah, and the comic book industry as a comic book purchaser, as somebody who buys, and I don't really exactly, I enjoy them for the reading and the art. I don't, I bag and board on my comics, but I don't necessarily keep them for for financial gain later on down the road.
Yes, read them.
And that's what I do. I read them, but it's every time I get to that point where I feel like I'm buying too many comic books and I kind of tone down my pool, then something like Secret Wars happens, and now there's all these new comics. I end up buying more than I had eventually because it's
a
just
trap. Yes, they try to suck you in and keep you.
But I enjoy every second of it. So
that's like I said, to me. I love the fact that I do something I enjoy and I bring enjoyment to others with what I do. So you can't have a better job than that.
Really. Yeah, at Mayfair, you're teaching some kids how to draw Batman better than I could draw Batman. So
well, I could teach you too if you want to. Yes.
Yeah, I know you had those pieces of paper that have, just the printed drawings that you've done. My wife took one home and colored it for her. And it's now on our refrigerator, so there you go.
Okay.
You've made it to the fridge.
But I mean, that's like the other thing too, like it's just becoming a family affair now. People are taking, I know people that I went to high school with that are now taking their kids to conventions. And
my wife likes Captain America more than I do now because of everything.
I love the fact that it's only been, I think, relatively recently that they really started wising up and saying like, hey, let's aim some of these superhero things at 5-year-olds too.
Yeah.
Because I had a good friend of mine. They just had a baby, and he's been a comic book geek his whole life, and he wanted to indoctrinate his son immediately into. And he's like, wait, where's the infant stuff of superheroes? And he found it. I mean, but 20 years ago, forget it.
Yeah.
It's like but. Now it's so much out there that people are being raised from birth. They can't even read yet, and they know who these characters are. It's pretty wild.
And you mentioned like Guardians of the Galaxy, how 10 years ago nobody would know. My 4-year-old niece loves the movie and knows all the characters. So I mean, it's just crazy.
Wait, I thought that was a PG-13 movie.
She was with a parent or guardian. So.
But I like on the opposite end of that too that Marvel is actually now starting to. I mean, they gear it towards families with kids and adults, but now with the Deadpool movie, they're now kind of going more towards just adult. Like it's got the R rating, so kids aren't going to be able to see it. So they're gearing more towards the fans that were more into that adult writing and that adult humor.
That's another thing that a lot of people think of comics as, again, when I was a little kid, people thought comics were only for little kids when they were already being aimed at college students and above and stuff. But comics is just a medium. Movies are just a medium. You can have G-rated, PG-rated, R-rated, and as long as it's a good story, it'll still work. And there are some characters, like the new Daredevil series is very
dark.
Dark, is very violent
Right.
and stuff. That's not really aimed at little kids watching this thing, you know. I'm sure they will, but but yeah, a character like Deadpool, he's going to work best with an R-rated film. You know, if you do the Punisher, you don't want to do a G-rated Punisher.
No,
it's not going to work, you know. So yeah, I think there's plenty of room. Again, if they treat it with respect, they do a good job, it can work in any level.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely been a lot of insight, and I know we've already held you up for the interview part for an hour, but we've had you longer. We've had you longer than that with some other issues. Maybe we'll talk about later on in the podcast. So, we don't want to hold you up any longer. But we want to encourage people to find you on Twitter, and forgive me, I have to look on my phone.
At AnchorScott1.
And then also they can find out about your classes at
ArtsandFashionsinstitute.com.
I was getting ready to read it. You beat me to it. So
That's why I'm here.
I'll just leave it to you. So, but thank you
and
for
artsquest.org for information
on the rest of the
exhibition.
So
very good. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you spending some time in person with us doing this. So it was as a comic book reader, and obviously Adam and I both big fans of the comic books and everything. I know a lot of people that listen to us are too. There's a lot of great insight that that we didn't really know about. So it's it works out.
Very cool.
So, all right, guys, stick around, and we'll be back with more of the showcast when we come back.